Hello, 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 hello. Okay. So this is kind of where I want to leave off for today. This is kind of where I'm stuck at. Not stuck at, but again, this is my first day back after like a week or two. So we're just getting into the rhythm. But back to structure, right? Back to structure. Structure number one. And this is kind of where I'm at, right? So when it comes to this right here on H4, obviously we see higher low, higher high, higher low, and then it's like the same thing, right? We're pretty much just pushing. That's pretty much it right now. When it comes to this minor structure here, right? This is where we get confused. This is where we get lost. You need to understand that on H4, this is structure: higher low, higher high, higher low. And right now we're trying to create that next higher high point, which is beyond this point. All this is minor structure, right? Now that structure can be better seen on H1, right? If we go to H1, we can pretty much see, okay, this, right here, that higher high, higher low, and now we're kind of stuck at that like high point, right? So right here we're stuck at that high point here. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at when it comes to structure, right? So when it comes to like stuff like this, candles, like we understand that's also structure, and this can throw us off because on this time frame, kind of like it did here, we kind of broke a level of support, made a lower high, it's like a lower low. This can start to get us, right? This little push here can start to kind of really get us fooled in a sense, and kind of, yeah, just kind of getting like it's still a trend, but it's not the trend on H1. This trend is probably best seen on like, now it is a trend, right? I want to establish that is a trend, but it's not the main trend, right? When it comes to H1, the main trend is this higher low and this higher high, right? And then we can confirm this by also going up here and just really seeing what's real and what's just noise, right? As we can see, we have a nice push, higher high, right? We have a higher low, we have all this stuff. We can confirm that. So when stuff like this starts to happen, right? This little minor trend, this little minor trend here. All right, this can get us fooled because again, it's decently seen on this time frame here, right? We have like a little lower high, lower low, right? So this is kind of where we get confused. This is where we get lost. This is where we struggle, right? Because again, stuff like this will get us, but we just need to understand the overall trend. So right now at this point too, right, back to kind of where we're at here, higher low, and this is just a push, trying to make another higher high. That's all that is. Push, right? So then when it comes to this structure, you don't want to get too involved and too like into the structure. Now, with that being said, right, back to kind of like the course, right, what he would talk about a lot when it comes to engulfings, higher low points, all that, right? So on H1, so this is H4, right? We're kind of analyzing H4 on H1, and engulfing would be key. Also a higher low point, right? Just like he said, this is the time frames, kind of like that next time frame down doesn't have to be the detailed time frame. It can just be that next one down, where you want to see the engulfings, where you want to see pretty much the higher low points be formed, right? That's pretty much your sign, right? A good example right here, once again, engulfing, right? A lower high point. Same thing, right? Let's see. Right here we just have an engulfing. Right here we have pretty much an engulfing and then like a little higher low point. Here we just have an engulfing. Here's an engulfing, kind of with a higher low point everywhere, right? So this is kind of the time frame that we want to see. That's the next one down. It doesn't have to be the detailed time frame, right? The detailed time frame is pretty much the time frame that's on lower time frames. That's showing the details of these candles here, right? So this is where we get lost, right? Again, when it comes to this minor structure, just want to understand. So how can we like better this in a sense? It's just we understand that H4, right? So this is like the minor trend. Same thing here, right? This right here looks like a trend, right? This is where we get lost. We get fooled with all this, right? Boom. Once again, that is a trend, but it's not the trend, right? It's not the trend. And that trend is technically best viewed on H1. So now what we get breaks like this, right? Stuff like that. We need to be careful because, once again, that's not the real support. Support, right, for this trend is that. But then we need to also try to view this H4 as just a push. That's all that is. It's just a push, retracement. That's it. All right, push, pullback, push, pullback. All right, push, retracement. Same thing, right? That's what we just gotta continue to think about. And that's how we get engulfings, right? That's how engulfings come in part. Because again, here on this time frame, this is multiple candles. But like on the daily, that right there is an engulfing. Boom. And that engulfing is this here. Boom. Which is pretty much 100%. The 100% of the structure, right? Boom. It's pretty much us retracing all the way to 100% and breaking it. That's that. Once again, that's that engulfing, right? And so then on daily, when it comes to kind of overall structure and us seeing an engulfing and all that stuff, is what we want to pretty much be a part of, right? So even on H4, like this right here is a lower high point, so we're already kind of starting to form that structure to potentially start to maybe just continue to push. And that would make sense also because why? We're pretty much not breaking this higher high point here. It's pretty much making a high over a lower high point, and then pretty much that's that engulfing, yeah, but just keep in mind of structure. Technically, this is just retracement, right? When it comes to engulfings, that was just that retracement because we can see that we broke this little lower high, push here, right? So that's the difference. Rather than just having candles, kind of like maybe like this kind of, if we get an engulfing here, maybe we can kind of see a little bit of structure here. But when it's just candles, like this, we can pretty much see that it's a bit different. So now that's that lower high point that can potentially be pushing and making to then get a nice decent push. We would also be with the MAs here, right? So I'm getting a little bit too ahead of myself, but just keep that in mind, right? Structure is structure. It's always number one. Just this is where we just have to really kind of come back to this whole structure before we move on, before anything else, before trying to trade. Once again, just structure. Okay. This is that time frame that we just need to really be it's hard though. This is where we gotta focus on here. This is where we struggle with the most. Is this little minor trend. We understand the overall trend, but the minor trend is what gets to us. But we gotta understand that if it's not making that actual higher high point, like here, for example, coming back to that same thing, right? We're gonna have this here. Actually, we have this here, right? High, boom, right? And we check on daily. That shows one candle. This candle right here. Boom. That's all that is. Boom, right? And then we have another here. Boom. Once again, that's that retracement. And once again, boom. That's that next candle. Alright, these next two candles actually, well, this is still live right here. It's today. Alright, same thing here. We have this here, boom. this push here, which is structure on H1. Right, this is where it can get us, because even here we can get like a nice little break, lower high, but until it breaks an actual level of support. Until you break an actual L. I'm just gonna just leave it at that. I'm gonna just leave it at that. This is pretty much what we need to pretty much look at. No. So that's pretty much where we're gonna leave it at, right? Until these levels are actually broken, right? Just it's still, so for example, like here, higher low, higher high, until this level here is broken, we're still bullish. So it can come, we can do all this, right? Boom, boom, boom. We can do all that, and at the end of the day, we'll still be bullish. But that's just understanding that, okay, these, we want to, if we're gonna aim for long-term buys, we want to make sure that it's either making an engulfing, right? But then on lower time frames, it's not a retracement, it's a breakup structure or something that we're pretty much flowing with, or it's a higher low point, kind of like this here, you know. So here, like for example, like this here, engulfing, cool. We understand that it's not, it could actually be the retracement based off, oh no, this was that retracement here, boom, 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 yeah. So this would be the engulfing, and then we wait on that, boom, right. So if it is a retracement, then we wait for a higher low point or something like that. Alright, just stick to that. Stick to that for now. We'll piece it little by little.